r/AskReddit. What screams I'm way richer than I look. One of my high school brothers is fucking rich, while rest of us are very normal. He did nothing special, but he always wander around at near shops after school, some random branded shop that no high school boys will ever need. One time we finally asked him why he didn't went back home after school. He said he is waiting for his driver to come. Another time I met him very coincidentally at the boarding place at the airport. I was going to Vienna, and he is to London. He has nothing on him, no bags or carriages, and his hair is wet. Turns out he just took a shower in the lounge. Afterward, we are still very good friends. Man, I've been in those airport lounges a few times. You really live life when you can actually go there normally, rather than through some exception. Most people who fly business/first class for their company end up getting status cards. They are not a badge to be proud of, as it shows how little time you've spent with your family. Anyway, those cards will get you in the lounges, regardless the class you fly. Base Concorde lounge when flying economy. Yeah, done that a few times. I've paid a few first and biz tickets for holidays on points accumulated from company trips. I'm not rich. If I was, I'd quietly slip on board my G-Jet from Farnborough, not Heathrow. The only one who would know you make bank would be your pilots and staff. I went to dinner with the GF and her parents. After we ate, the owner came out and asked how the meal was, and then we left without a bill ever coming to the table. On the way home I asked GF about it, and she said her dad had tabs at all the restaurants he liked to eat at. As we were leaving, the valet brought the cars around, and I mentioned I liked his Tahoe. I asked what year it was, and he kind laughed and said whatever is the newest one. I didn't know he owned a car dealership in another city. Just imagine that you have $60 billion in the bank, but you don't want anybody to know about it. But your attitude would betray you. You would be unconcerned. I like to think it's not because they are paranoid about people going to steal from them, but more of just people will treat them differently if they knew. MO money MO problems is the definition of that. Your goal to be rich as fuck has been achieved. Now you just want normal friends to hang out with. Look at the watch and shoes. That's always the tell. Some rich people dress like shit, but they always get good watches. Can agree to that. My mother's great aunt left her a watch. Said it was nothing special, but needs some cleaning and work to it. Mum took it to a jeweler's who said that the watch was 18K white gold and diamonds when we thought it was paste and steel. Balked when my mum asked me to wear it to my wedding as I was afraid I'd lose it. It's set aside for me though. Great aunt lived like a hobo, but had millions worth of properties. Last I heard, is her heirs still squabbling over it. Legend has it, she has a jar full of diamonds in a bank safe. I remember being in a cruise, and one of the families in one of the penthouse suites didn't sleep in their suite when we were at Bora Bora overnight, because they had rented an overwater bungalow, minimum $1,000 a night. Same family got a hotel room when anchored at another atoll, because they wanted to use the hotel services while spending time on the white sand beach. Brand new car, top of the range, all the optional extras. But it's a Toyota Corolla. There's a rich neighborhood near where I live. £1,000,000 plus houses and the like in a picturesque part of town that looks like the lid to a biscuit tin. You'd expect Range Rover and Audi as far as the eye can see, but almost everything is a small hatchback. It's wild walking past this giant, almost stately looking home, and on the driveway is a Fiat 500 and a Ford Fiesta. Edit, for the people that missed the pound sterling symbol. Pounds. These sorts of houses in the UK don't have garages, since many upper class houses here were built before the invention of the car. They aren't hiding some supercar away. Some people with money do legitimately not care about having a flashy car. Just buy a hatchback in cash and be done with it. I work at a luxury resort. People call to book rooms with me all day and they aren't cheap. I can tell when it's obvious a young couple who had to scrape together the dough for the cheapest room. But every once in a while I'll get a call from someone who casually calls and asks to book the biggest room without asking for the price. They know exactly what they want, and the price means nothing to them. 2.5k a night. No biggie. Here is my card number. Old boss to a company I worked for. He drove an old Toyota Hilux and worked in the factory of the building. I remember work break up I spotted him put $300,000 on a roulette table. doubled it and put it in his pocket. He would always ask me impossible questions at work, and once I got it right, he bought me lunch. A lot of small in the know things, like a certain wristwatch that costs a fortune, but for most people is indistinguishable from afar from say a €2,000 watch or a really expensive pen. There's a lot of famous really expensive looking clothes and accessories like Dolce & Gabbana or Mont Blanc, stuff that's noticeable and recognizable. But then there's a whole bunch of way more discreet fashion and design brands that can cost a tenfold more and are at first glance indistinguishable from the normal high price range. They usually have a discreet logo or a distinct feature by which you can tell them apart. While they certainly have a good quality lots of times, their price/performance ratio is basically non-existent, so I think they exist only for the precise purpose of saying I'm way richer than I look. So this is totally anecdotal, but I went to school with a lot of actually wealthy people while being lower middle class myself, scholarships and whatnot, and what I've always found is a sort of confidence in their perspective and worldview bordering on arrogance. Like your average middle class person, and poorer person to an even greater extent has usually been sort of put in their place by life more than once. They're not super tied to thinking that their way is the only/best way, because they've had to adapt quite a bit to the real world. Even when they are arrogant about their perspective, it's usually a more communal perspective that came from others, not like their personal perspective about themselves. Rich people on the other hand tend to have that Karen type of entitlement that says this is how things should be, this is how I should be treated and perceived, and anything else is wrong/unacceptable. They're not necessarily assholes about it, but it's this kind of ego thing that's very apparent if you spend any significant time with them. And it carries through no matter if they go to grad school or work for a low-paying non-profit job or what. They might be wearing cheap clothes and driving a cheap car, but you can feel that attitude really quickly if you have experience with it. Edit. I expanded on this in a comment below and gave I think a better description of what I'm talking about here. My cousin is a teacher at a private school. She said what immediately struck her when she first got the job was how those kids have an innate sense that they have something valuable to offer and deserve to occupy important places. That type of confidence is not something you get in a normal school. Imagine a normal kid telling their careers advisor they'd like to be an MP or go into politics. They'd probably be discouraged and told to be more realistic. In a private school that shit is expected. Not only that, but they're familiar with the customs that go along with important/high-flying careers. Look at all the posturing and performance that happens in the House of Lords in the UK. At Eton or Harrow you'd have serious debate teams that mimic that format. In your local state school you wouldn't. I have a friend from the top 1-2% in his respective country, but you'd never be able to tell, except he'd always pay for our food when we went out with him, and would sometimes be confused about the price of certain things, or why we couldn't just do certain things, because they'd require big amounts of money. Another certainly wealthy foreign friend invited my entire family to stay in his family's second house. He never talks about money, but it somehow slipped that he's got a golden credit card, although I don't know the implications behind having such. Or a wealthy family I used to live with. We went to McDonald's drive-thru in our pajamas several times. Very carefree. Not knowing the price of cheap food at all, such as instant ramen or cheapest shitty sandwich. My grandma's father is CEO of huge car international corporation. So when we went to store along she was so surprised seeing the price of cheapest instant ramen, and also she said that doesn't know how they actually taste, with kind of confused/innocent face without any being cocky. My GF. She goes around with like casual clothes. I know for a fact her mom runs a company with like 9 different important patents and they have a fuckload of money. Also my boss at work walks around with dirty clothes while making I believe about $100k a month. Working not because you need the income, but because you enjoy the power of your position. My mom used to work for a guy that was a VP of an international corporation, basically handling all their finances and legal issues. He owned several malls too, and invested in large amounts of property. He was in his 70s. At a Christmas party one year, somebody asked him why he hadn't retired. With a smile, he responded with, "It's not about the money." There was this one time where I had to attend a meeting with the company president. I had to wake up hella early cause the meeting was arranged early in the morning. We were all in formal attire and very serious. I expected the president to be the same, but instead, he showed up in his pajamas with his cute Pikachu mug and asked us, "Why the hell are you in suits so early in the damned morning?" It honestly made me smile and took all my nervousness away. I still work for the company and we are currently good friends. I used to work as a nanny in eBay. My first family there really tried to show off their money, paid lots of money for a number plate with low numbers on it for their car, IDK, it's a thing there. Always made sure that the brand names on their bag/shoes/whatever was clearly visible. Made it a huge deal that someone in the family was married to a sheik, had a holiday house in France that they constantly talked about, etc etc. I thought they were super rich because hadn't ever been around anyone with that much money before. Moved on to my second family, and the difference was huge. For starters, they had recently moved to Dubai and hadn't found a house they liked yet, so they rented a freaking 3-floor flat in a super fancy hotel for 6 months before moving into their house. Like it was no big deal to live in a hotel where the fee for a night was probably more than my monthly salary. The first family had always put kids and nannies in economy class while traveling. This family had everyone flying first class or business class if seats weren't enough when they didn't use the extended family's private jet. They tipped ridiculously well everywhere we went and generally spent huge amounts of money on all kinds of things, but never made a big deal out of it. But sometimes a mother would lock herself in her bedroom and cry while watching the news about starving kids in Yemen or the war in Syria, but it didn't seem to ever occur to her that she could donate money to any of these causes.